In today's video, yet another pre-construction preview where I will go through the project, some price lists, some floor plans, and some general background, and at the end, give you my general opinion. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. back with another video for you guys here today. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and my office. Feel free to get in touch with me with regards to your questions, if there are any questions, if any questions arise in this video or any other video in the past, or if you have any general inquiries whatsoever. And before we get into the pre-construction preview for today's video, you're also welcome to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Your support in terms of a subscription and a like is greatly appreciated, but you're not obliged to do so whatsoever. As I always say, feel free to do so if you actually want to do so and find my content informative. Anyways, let's get to the point of today's video, which is a pre-construction preview. I believe this is the 6th or 7th edition, I believe 6th actually, wherein I go through a pre-construction project, give you some general background, go through some prices, some floor plans, break those down for you, and at the end give you a general grade with regards to my opinion on the pre-construction project at hand. Today's pre-construction project that we're going to be talking about is actually a condominium tower that's going to come to Richmond Hill. Many of you have already gotten in touch with me with regards to this project, and I thought, why not make a video? But yes, it's a condominium, it's a residential structure coming to Richmond Hill, a MetroView development. These guys were the same builders responsible for the Y9825 building, or otherwise known as the 8888 condos, also in Richmond Hill on Yonge Street, but a little further south. That one, which is the most recent project they've had in Richmond Hill, was in South Richville, which is a different community than the one we're going to talk about today, the Y9825 building, which is going to be situated further north in Richmond Hill by Major Mac and Yonge. Now, the builder is not quite unproven. I wouldn't go so far as to say they are unproven, but they're definitely not one of the bigger builders. They have a lot of projects in Richmond Hill and some projects also to be announced in Richmond Hill as well. Clearly, in recent history, they've put a concerted effort into Richmond Hill with their projects. In terms of the total number of units, you're looking at 452 units, and it's going to be a mid-rise, about 22 stories. And earliest occupancy is expected for 2025. Now, with regards to the mid-rise nature of this building and in terms of the location, this portion of Richmond Hill, which is basically past Major Mac, which this will be right at the intersection of Major Mac and Yonge, is subject to certain zoning and bylaws which restrict the height of structures. If you look a little bit further south by the 888 building, or by Yonge and 16th, otherwise known as Carville, or even by Yonge and Weldrick, a little further south on Yonge Street, the residential structures there, in terms of the newer condominiums being developed and have been developed recently, those are a bit taller. The further north you go in Richmond Hill, closer to this project, and even north of this project into the depths of downtown Richmond Hill, which is old Richmond Hill, the restrictions in terms of how high you can build are more and more noticeable. Quickly put, some of the basic amenities: the gymnasium, the library, the recreation rooms in terms of pool, the party rooms. And this project also has some amenities that I personally find a little overvalued in terms of how much agents and other people are pushing this, is the outdoor gym and the outdoor cabana area. Basically, they have both an indoor and an outdoor gym. In terms of the outdoor cabana area, you can pretty much think of that as perhaps the outdoor party room where you would host events with barbecues and such. And in Toronto, when it comes to outdoor amenities for condominiums, and even condominiums that are the resort style condominiums, such as you have a couple by, for instance, Lawrence and Dufferin has some resort style condominiums. These resort type of condominiums without a lot of outdoor common areas and outdoor amenities are a little overrated in the city of Toronto, because you're really getting maximum 4 to 5 months of good use out of these areas. And that's being quite liberal, to be honest with you. So far as these amenities are concerned, I don't think they're that valuable, but you have your basics. Once again, the gymnasium, the library, the party rooms, the recreation rooms. And one of the things I actually found interesting, they have content creator studios, such as podcast rooms as well, which is quite interesting and unique. Now let's move on to more of the numbers and the prices here, starting out with the deposit structure. And you have both your domestic deposit structure and international deposit structure. For the international deposit structure, you're looking at a minimum of 35%. Domestic, you're looking at pretty much 20%. And after all, this is one of the benefits of pre-cons, generally speaking, is the drawn out deposit structure. It affords more flexibility to the buyer, but keep in mind, one of the drawbacks of pre-cons, generally speaking, nothing having to do with this project entirely, I've made clear in the past, is you can lose your deposit and there is no getting your deposit back if whatever happens, if the builder goes bankrupt or your financing falls through, right? Now, moving on from the deposit structure, in terms of parking, they're looking at $55,000 for a spot, for parking spots. And in terms of lockers, they're looking at $5,000. Now, in terms of the locker, I actually do believe the locker is decently priced here. But the parking, it's not so that it's poorly priced, but the value of parking the further north into York region you go, once again, if you're talking about North York even, which is in the city of Toronto, but Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Thornhill, even further north, value of parking drops. What I am clearly not saying is when you're purchasing a condominium in Richmond Hill, discard parking. No, parking for investment purposes, 99.999% of the time is a must-have. Parking is sometimes even more valuable than an additional bedroom or a den, whether it's in Richmond Hill, but especially in downtown, Midtown. So that's not what I'm saying. The point here is, though, that the further north you go, the less scarce parking is. As a result, although it's very important to have, it is marginally a little less important. At the end of the day, parking is scarce in GTA, sure, but it's less and less scarce, once again, if you're comparing Richmond Hill to downtown. Downtown parking is far more scarce of a resource than it is in Richmond Hill. Now let us go through some of the floor plans and prices, and this is not an exhaustive list. These are not all the unit types, but these are the unit types which I have the floor plans for and some of the major unit types, and we're gonna go from 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom units. Starting with 1 bedrooms, on the smaller size and lower end in terms of the prices, you're looking at 440 square feet, asking for $427,000, about $970 per square foot. As you can see, this is a 1 bed, 1 bath here. And in terms of layout, for instance, with this particular unit, when you're purchasing these types of units, you have to be mindful of the layout, not just interior, but as you can see, it's almost like a jagged edge. It looks like a corner piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And usually with these types of layouts, what you're risking is allocation next to the stairwell, the staircase. That's why that piece is missing right there. And what does that mean? Well, you would have to deal with constant traffic. If your unit is not well insulated, you're dealing with the slamming door of the stairwell, and you might not be the end user yourself, or you might be in the short term, you want to invest it, but at the end of the day, when you're making investments, you have to take these things into account. Another key thing about this 1 bedroom layout, the Y9825 project, you see with these 1 bedroom layouts, what you have is the washroom right next to the entrance. The only bath, because it's a 1 bed, 1 bath, is very close to the entrance and not close to your unit whatsoever, which in the grand scheme of things, once again, when you're comparing layout to layout, this is a negative, right? We want to ideally avoid where the washroom is very far from the primary bedroom, and on the other end of the extreme, we also want to avoid layouts where the only washroom in the unit is also in the bedroom. Ideally, if there's going to be 1 washroom in the unit, you want it to be somewhere close to the bedroom, but in the common area, in the family room, in the living room, where guests can access as well, but not so far as to be right next to the entrance. But then you have this layout, this one bedroom, which is asking for a little bit higher in terms of per square foot at $982 per square foot. It is larger, coming in at 461 square feet, asking for $454,000. This is what I more so meant with regards to the location of the bathroom if it's only a one bed, one bath. As you can see, this is situated in the middle, and the layout is much more superior. Of course, it is bigger, but even the layout is much more superior to the other one bedroom. And I think although it is more in terms of a per square foot price, these units will appreciate better when compared to the alternative, the first one we discussed, although you have to dish out a bit more. In terms of the layout, where the washroom is, it is a better option in terms of one bedroom with regards to this particular pre-con project we're discussing here. Moving on to some of the 1+1 options that are offered with this project. Here you're starting out at an asking price of $515,000 for about 549 square feet for a 1+1. In terms of per square foot price, you're looking at $939. And here, yes, as you can see from the layout, one thing that is very key for you to keep in mind with regards to this layout, that the 1+1 here is technically a media room, not a den. There's a difference between a den and a media room, right? Most buyers and consumers assume that a den and a media room are interchangeable, and that's not the case whatsoever. Basically, you can think of a media room as a much smaller den that is less so defined in terms of its boundaries, so it's not a clear convex within the layout. You know, it might not even appear as an additional room whatsoever. It might just appear as an extension of the bedroom. It's not the case here, but basically a media room in terms of resale value and how much we account for it impacts value much less than a den. And in my opinion, media rooms are better avoided if possible. And another drawback of these types of layouts you have is that everything is on one side. Your kitchen, obviously you get to choose where you want to put your couch and TV, but most often people are gonna, with this type of layout, put everything on one side because that's what makes more sense. Once again, these types of layouts where everything in terms of your living and your kitchen is on the left side, for instance, or the right side, those are also better avoided as well. As a general rule of thumb, you want to avoid rectangular shapes as much as possible and get closer to square-like shapes. And then we move on to our more legitimate 1+1. So this is a more legitimate den, not a media room. And one of the examples of the 1+1s with dens that this project is offering is the one we have up on the screen, asking for $589 at 597 square feet, somewhere around about, once again, $980 per square foot. And even though I was not a big fan of the previous unit we went through, for instance, the media room, the layout of that, I'm actually less of a fan of this layout as well. I think for the end user experience and the tenant's experience, which at the end of the day affects the pockets of the landlord, obviously this layout is even more less than ideal than with the one we were just discussing previous to this. At $980 a square foot, I'm not a big fan of, for instance, this one or even other 1+1 den options that this project is offering. Even though I'm not a fan of the layout, when we obviously do a simple per square foot comparison to pre-cons in downtown Toronto, for instance, for the 1+1s, this is obviously at $988. It's gonna run you far less than what I see per square foot in downtown Toronto. Obviously, most people would assume as such. I mean, even the pre-con condo, the good condos that we actually went through in the previous video in this series, they were asking for $1,300 per square foot for a 1+1, and this has 2 baths. You know, that one had 1 bath. Obviously, it's not a fair comparison because that's downtown and this is Richmond Hill. In terms of transit and amenities and what people need in terms of necessities, shopping malls and coffee shops and all that, downtown location is still a more prime location and much higher valued. And obviously, as I touched on, parking is more scarce, so the value of parking is far more important. So some of you say, well, obviously, you know, this is Richmond Hill, that's downtown. But from an investor's perspective, a pure investor's perspective, the rental income derived if you're planning on renting a 1+1 is not going to be that much less when you compare a 1+1 in Richmond Hill versus a 1+1 in downtown Toronto. It's going to be less, don't get me wrong, and it's going to impact cash flow. But in terms of rate of appreciation, but as long as the rate of appreciation outpaces whatever cash flow loss or negligible gain you're operating with, and obviously this is all dependent on how much you're putting down. I'm just, for the sake of argument, assuming you're not putting down 50% or 40% or 30 even. The point here is we see obviously a far cheaper price for 1+1s per square foot in this project than we saw with the antecedent project we discussed. And then quickly looking at an example of a 2-bedroom option, the Y9825 is offering, for instance, with this one here, you have a 631 square foot 2-bed asking for $793. And as you can see, the layout here is much better than the 1-bedroom and 1+1 media and den options we were discussing. And for most investors, if you're not dealing with a high level of capital, or if it's your first and second purchase, basically if you're a novice to a beginner investor, I usually advise you to stay away from 2-bedroom condominiums. It requires more capital, obviously, and more patience. Obviously here, speaking with the context of PreCon, right? In resale, it's kind of a different story. So let's move on to my final thoughts about this project. I would probably have to say this is a B- to a B for me. Now, speaking from the investor's perspective exclusively, if you're gonna invest in this building, you're better off going for the 1-bedroom, 2-washroom units and the 1+1s that are not a media but a den. And you're best avoiding the southern exposure. Anyways, let me know if you have any further questions, any other details you want cleared up. Feel free to get in touch with me with my contact info in the description box. That's Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. You can find that contact info in the description box. And also feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. As always, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.